Hey everybody, what's going on? It is Tuesday, which means it is time for another episode of the Hemmings Hot Rod BBQ podcast. I am down here. I am Mike Musto along with my cohort, Mr.
Dan Stoner. I try to figure out different ways to say the name
I
every
know.
week. I don't know. You get into like a repeat pattern with this every once
I mean,
in a
do we
while.
just come on next time and be like, "Yo, it's Mike and Dan. How you
Yep.
doing?"
We'll just
Like-
use each other's names. We'll switch names up. See how that gets us. Yeah.
Yep. I think we should. Yeah, that'll be
Good
next
idea.
week. I like that.
Yeah. I like it.
We'll
Right.
play it up. This episode is a fun one. We've got Mr. Jonny Lieberman, senior features editor from Motor Trend. Johnny's been in this industry a long time. Fantastic journalist. Overall, just a great guy. Knows his stuff when it comes to cars, automotive technology, journalism. He's one of the good ones, folks. So this will be a good one. But before we get into Johnny, as you all know, we always try to pick a car from the Hemmings Classified, of which there are 25 to 30,000 classifieds online, along with our Hemmings auction place. And the car that we pick is generally kind of a representative of what Dan and I think is kind of our
Yeah.
guest.
Like what's the car version of our guest? Right.
Right?
Like if our guest was a car, what would he look like? He or she.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So for this episode, we've got a pretty stout, I think this is a 77, 1977 Mercedes-Benz 450 SEL 6.9. Now, for those that don't know, the 6.9 is kind of one of those kind of mystical Mercedes, right? It was a brute when it came out. European version was 286 horsepower and like 405 pound-feet of torque. It was one of the fastest, most powerful European cars out at the time, and it was this big tank of a sedan. And it was good at pretty much everything. I mean, Brock Yates, the famous automotive journalist, just kind of gushed over this thing. And this particular one that we pulled from the classifieds is a beautiful blue. It is just in gorgeous shape, and it's one of those cars that is kind of timeless, and you know that it'll be here well into the apocalypse, and whatever happens, there'll probably be cockroaches and the 6.9 Mercedes, and maybe a few Ford Crown Victorias.
Like I always think of one of these things as like, if you ever watched The Love Boat, in the very beginning, if there was ever a scene where like one of the guests on the show, Zsa Zsa Gabor, was like coming up to the dock to board, the SS, whatever. It was one of these things, right?
Yeah.
And there was always like, like it was that's how that car was introduced to me as a kid,
Yep.
and that was. Like you said, when I think of Mercedes, I still think of one of these. I don't even think of a new car. I think of one of these. That 70s to like 85, 86, that general decade, that spanned the 70s and 80s. I think of this when I think of Mercedes-Benz. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. Just big, beautiful, gorgeous cars.
Yeah. Here's one of my questions, Mike. Like as we were looking at this and poring over the different shots on the Hemmings listing, I'm curious, dude. What in the world? What the hell is a Becker Mexico radio? Because that to me, that sounds like a vacation in and of itself that I want to go on, right?
I know.
And I'm curious. You probably know a little bit more about these than I do. I'm sure anyone would, but I would love to hear even from the Hemmings Nation as far as like what is a Becker Mexico experience all about? That's what I'm curious about.
So, to my knowledge, the Becker was one of the first Beckers out there with a cassette deck. And Becker was basically the stereo manufacturer of choice up until I want to say the late 80s, early 90s. I don't think they still do.
It's a good
Mercedes,
German name.
but
German name.
And they've done, Becker, they did Mercedes, they did BMW, but it was kind of like, I guess in the late 80s when you and I would look at something with an Alpine stereo and go, "Oh my God, it's got an Alpine. That guy must be rich."
Yeah, it's got a Kenwood. Yeah,
got a Kenwood. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think Becker was standard equipment on Mercedes back in the day,
and to say Becker Mexico, like that just
awesome.
Seems like a lot, right? That leads me to imagine Germans, escaping the homeland to Mexico to brew beer and to create like a little utopia for themselves. And here it is, we made radios, sort of like the Amana,
yes,
appliance version of radios. We're gonna go to Mexico. We're going to start a utopian society. We're going to build radios and sell them. That's how we're going to support ourselves. And, we're going to put these in every Mercedes-Benz we can get. Right.
Well, listen, the seller, they've got it. It's pretty predominant in the listing. So, Hey, man.
Looks good.
All good.
Yeah.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Mercedes, Jonny Lieberman coming up. We'll be back in about 5 seconds. Hey, everybody. We're back with the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. On today's episode, Jonny Lieberman, senior features editor at Motor Trend, just automotive. You ready for this, Johnny? Automotive icon in the industry.
Whoa!
What? Wow!
All right.
The man has been doing this a long time.
Yeah.
Knows cars. Amazing journalist. Has been involved in just about every aspect of the industry, right? And just one hell of a nice guy. So, Johnny, welcome to the Hot Rod BBQ, man.
Wow, yeah. Mike, thank you so much. That's a better introduction than I get on many other podcasts. Let me tell you. So,
well, listen, I feel like people who have earned their place and you know as well as I do in this industry, have earned their place.
Yeah, it's a funny industry. I'll tell you that much. But anyways, great to be here. Great to be here. I'm sorry. I worked out this morning and I haven't eaten, and I can be loud, but my brain is completely empty. So you're gonna have to like really pull good content out of me. I'm sorry. I'm trying to suck down this coffee, but
that's all right. Stoner and I are good at doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just be eye candy like I normally am, you know.
Right.
Right.
So, Johnny, first, how have you been doing this year? Granted that it's almost over. Thank you, God.
It's one of those funny things. Like my wife and I this morning were just saying, like, boy, we've had it easier than a lot of people. But then it's like, well, actually, my mom died, my best friend died. And then it was a little over a year ago, but Davy Johnson died. Yep. My wife's stepmother, was her stepmother for 36 years, died. So like death wise, it's been really bad.
Right.
But like we're both employed, our kid's doing great, and he's 3, so he doesn't really notice anything's wrong. So right. I can complain, but the supercars keep showing up, and
right.
I'm okay. It could be a lot worse. Could be a lot worse.
Wonderful.
How about you? How you been?
Dude, doing good. I mean, Dan and I launched the podcast, I guess, September-ish or so?
Yeah, September, right? Yeah, August, September, something like that. That seems like, it's the year of the Rona, so that seems like, what year was that? Did we launch this thing? Right. Have we been doing this for 3 years already? I don't know.
I know.
There's no rules.
But it's been going really well. Got a bunch of stuff on the horizon. I think the same thing that, in the pro column, right? Everybody's employed. Everybody, things are moving forward, which is great. We're looking forward to a good 2021. And so I'm not going to pitch, honestly. Good. Not going to pitch.
Good. Okay, good. All right. So, that out of the way.
Let's talk fun stuff. Let's talk automobiles. Now, for those people out there, if you don't follow Johnny, you need to follow him on Instagram. Correct? So, Johnny, what is your appropriate Instagram handle?
At Jonny Lieberman. The only weird thing is that Johnny doesn't have an H. It's Jonny. And then it's Lieberman is Lieberman. So at Jonny Lieberman. But yeah, it's a fun account if you like cars and a little bit more watch content these days.
Yes.
One of the things I got into in 2020 was started kind of really getting into watches. Like I've always wanted to, and I've never really had the financial wherewithal. And I mentioned my mom passed away, so she left me a little bit of money. And my wife actually, for our 10-year wedding anniversary, which we were supposed to go to Italy in May. So she got me a really nice watch. Actually, this watch, I'll just pimp my little sin here.
Nice.
The German watch. It's very cool. Made of submarine steel. And then I bought a couple other cool watches, and I've just really fallen down a horrible rabbit hole. Like you thought cars were horribly expensive, and they are. But here's another one. But I'm really enjoying it. It's really fun, and it's like cars. There's a very cool community that I remember when I first met my wife, she's like, "Oh, you're into cars? Like everyone's going to be so boring." And then she met like Spinelli and Bumbeck and Mary Martin and Davey. And she's like, these are the most fascinating people on planet Earth. Like forget about cars. They're totally like, off the wall. And then I keep bringing home people like, ACP and I don't know, just guys like that. And So I'm finding in the watch community, there's some very interesting people, and the only thing that really ties them together is they all like watches. So
right.
it's
and
cool.
they all like mechanical things, right, Johnny? I mean, that's sort of like the tie-in between what you're doing on your wrist and what you're doing in your garage, right?
Yes, although it's funny. Like, I know a lot of car people, like crazy car people that live and breathe cars that don't even know how they work.
Yeah.
We all know those people. Yeah.
But like
that would be me.
Yeah. No, but like I bring up like Brett Burke, who I fell in love with when it was like the launch of the Chevy Volt. And he did this video, and they put a poor Detroit engineer in a car with Brett. And so Brett's like, yeah, so tell me about this thing. And the guy's going off about planetary gear sets. And I remember Brett, he just turns to the guy, he goes, look, just so you know, my understanding of how this car works is you plug it into the wall and there's a wizard in the wall going, but so I know lots of people that like watches that have no idea how they work. I know guys with watches, they don't even set them. They just like the way they look, which is fine.
It's fine. Totally. Fine. They just pull out their iPhone and look at what time it is, right? Even though they're wearing I know 10 grand on their wrist, right? Yeah.
I'm guilty of that too sometimes.
Yeah. What time is it? Hold on a minute. Yeah.
So, but anyways, so I've really been enjoying that. But my Instagram, mostly cars, about 5% watches.
Yeah. Johnny, one of the things I will say too, like now that you bring this up, I not too terribly long ago had a conversation with someone in the media industry. We were talking about some potential projects, et cetera, and she is really, really knowledgeable about all things media. She's very, very aware of a lot of different categories within media, but she doesn't really know cars that much. She's aware, that there is such a thing, but I'm talking to her about just car collecting and what we do, right? And how big the industry really is, et cetera, et cetera. And to give you a sense of just like how much of a sort of echo chamber we all really kind of live in, maybe, she said, wait a minute, Dan, are you telling me that people out there in the world collect cars the way people collect watches? I'm like, oh my God. And like that revelation, when it came right down to it, she was making as much of a mechanical connection to what I was talking about as she could muster. Sure. And that was really interesting, right? That there was that connection there between something mechanical like a wristwatch and collecting those things in cars.
And look, there is a huge crossover between the two, as we know. Now, sure, like Jethro Bovingdon, he's like, oh, don't become one of those fucking watch assholes. Like, don't do it. It's so boring. You're gonna be one of them. You're gonna start calling out reference numbers and talking about statements. And I'm headed down that road. Yeah, it's horrible. Yeah. But I get a lot of pleasure out of it. I don't know.
Yeah, but it's not though. I think that you went into the whole community aspect of it, right? And I think whether if you're passionate about a car, or if you're passionate about a watch, or if you're passionate about anything, I think that's what anybody who really goes down that rabbit hole and finds, that real interest and wants to learn as much about it as they can, that they're passionate about so many other industries as well. And so many other, but that's great to see. I mean, if you're passionate about, you could be passionate about a coffee cup. If you could talk about it, and you're really passionate about, I'll get excited about it. I mean, that's what kind of drives it, right?
We're collectors at heart,
but it's also more, it's like arch materialism, it's like we live in this throwaway culture, and it's nice. Like, there's no way out of it, right? We all gave Amazon $1,000 this year already for crap nobody wants or needs, but it's nice to like focus on the crap that you're going to stay focused on for years and years,
Yeah.
And I think maybe that's part of the crossover with cars and watches is, and I collect like bourbon.
Oh yeah.
So it's my, part of my bourbon collection. There's about double that much off camera, but so, it's, I guess I just have this thing for like high quality, fine quality. I don't know what the term is, but like, rather than focus on the stuff that you're going to like look at once and toss, the stuff you like collect, there's a worth to it, a value that's beyond the financial value.
Sure.
Intellectual value or something.
No, I agree with that. Well, all right. So that's going to seg me into my next question for you. And this is going to go kind of back to automobiles. So, we look at everything that's coming out now, right? We look at all the supercars, we look at just about any car that's coming out right now, and we look at the technology that's in these cars. And I know you're a big tech fan. Like how, all the cars that I own are the newest thing that I own is a 2002, right? And I stay in that kind of pre 2005 because I can still work on everything and I understand it. It's still very analog to me, even though it's still a little bit advanced, not a lot, but a little bit. Do you think that the newer cars today, when we talk about things like a Tesla, or we talk about even the new Mercedes or the Porsches and stuff with all this technology, do you think they're throwaways in 10 years? Do you think they'll be around? I mean,
Funny question. It's tough to say with electric cars. I don't know. I don't think the book has been written yet. So it's really hard to say. I'll say, you've probably been seeing this all over a lot of people's Instagrams, but like, me and Jason and Farah and a bunch of people got to drive all these like pretty amazing Porsches.
Yeah.
One of them is 2 years old. One of them is 3 years old. And like whatever the opposite of throwaway is, like, literally they're in a museum. And they're wonderful, and they're incredibly complicated, and they are among the finest cars I've ever driven. Like there's the 4.0, the 911. It's a 997 GT3 RS 4.0. I think it's the greatest automobile of all time. Nothing will ever touch it.
Wow,
unbelievable! Like
that's throwing down the gauntlet.
Just that's an angry, screaming,
mean,
stick in the eye. Spitting at you, just perfect, hugely mechanical. It's still a manual, and it's a cool manual. I don't know if you've ever you probably have, but if you've ever driven a manual that doesn't have plastic synchro mesh, it has like metal,
they're amazing.
Yeah. So it's like when it's cold, it doesn't like to move.
Yeah, it's notchy. It's great. Yeah,
you gotta like get heat in it. And takes some strength, and it's like. Yeah, so that car is 2011. Incredibly advanced by, if you look at the timeline of the history of cars. But like, yeah, I love it. So electric cars are tough because I don't know. I don't know yet. And also, if you think about cars that people collect, by and large, not 100%, but they have two doors, right? For some reason, if a car has two doors, it's much more collectible than a four-door car.
Yeah.
So there hasn't been any two-door pure electrics yet. For whatever reason, they're tiptoeing around that. Tesla claims to have one. Actually, the Tesla Roadster.
Well, the Roadster.
Yeah. Fair enough. And which is kind of collectible, actually.
Yeah.
I've been into a couple of rich dudes' car collections, and they'll have one tucked away. So maybe, I don't know. I like the idea of electric cars for a lot of reasons. I don't spend a ton of time thinking about them. So
okay. What about cars like, when we talk about like the new Mercedes and what, like I've had a host of new Mercedes and BMWs and everything from things with the technology like the gesture control, right? And just which drives me insane. I hate it so much.
Yes. Well, that gesture control is specifically like, it doesn't work if you're Italian or Jewish. It's a real
exactly. You know my pain. Yeah. So,
but I think if you're German, where you like move one thumb during I
was just gonna say you got to be like German or something of the Nordic persuasion. Then we can make it
moat. Like
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
No, it's a real problem. Yeah, I know. I agree. Gesture control. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so that type of technology, I know that bounce control in the Mercedes for off-road, stuff like that, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. I think it's cool. Yeah. But do you think that in like, and you'll see, but every podcast, we pick a car from our classifieds that we feel kind of represents or kind of goes in line with the guests that we have on. Okay. And today we picked that's what we picked, a 77 Mercedes 450 SEL 6.9.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. Yeah.
Right. And the reason is
complicated.
Yeah. But that car has staying power. And that was in the time when Mercedes built cars that they're forever cars. They're ungodly, grossly over-engineered.
Well,
right.
I would say though, if you had a time machine and we got back to a podcast in 1978, they would be talking about this Mercedes the way you're talking about gesture control, because why does it have hydraulic shocks? Like that's right. Unnecessary complication. So I think time really does change all that. So what I would say, based on the two things that you mentioned, the gesture control is actually it's a supplier innovation. So in other words, BMW didn't come up with it. I think Bosch came up with gesture control and said, hey, you want to put it in your cars? And BMW did it first. Mercedes actually has the same gesture control in M-Bucks now, right?
Okay.
Bounce mode in the Mercedes, that's a Mercedes innovation. I actually met the engineer, who's this like little 29-year-old pisher German guy who, he came up with these insanely fast-moving hydraulic pumps that can do like, I forget what it is, like 2,000 pound-feet of torque in like, a millisecond or whatever it takes to like make the car jump. So I think gesture control, since it's going to just be an industry thing. Like puddle lights. Have you noticed how every car now at night, when you open the door, it puts a Mustang on the ground?
Yeah.
That's a supplier thing, right? That's why when you see technology kind of spread rapidly across automakers, it's coming from Bosch or Delco or something like that.
Okay.
But when no one else is doing the bouncy bounce, that's because that's an automaker developed that.
Okay.
So if I had to guess, in going forward, like the Mercedes I have out front, the GLE 450, the miserable gesture control, which doesn't even work. If that breaks, no one will fix it. But the bounce control that'll be worth putting money into to keep it going, because it's kind of neat.
Okay.
Do you
think that? No, it does. It actually, those are all great points, and that's a very interesting point between a supplier and a manufacturer, right? Because that's I don't think the public actually understands that. I think a lot of times they think, Mercedes might have this or BMW might have this, but they don't understand that, listen, our supplier came up with this technology, not us as a brand. And then I guess they would go out and they would sell it to the manufacturer and say, listen, we have this really innovative product. It would work well for your audience and so on.
Yeah. And a lot of modern car innovation is supplier led, because they have R&D and they're just coming up with cool features, and that'll fit great. I'm blanking on innovation like ZF is a great one. So most 8-speed automatic transmissions, from the Hellcat to the Jaguar F-Type, it's the ZF 8-speed, same transmission. Aston Martin Vantage, BMW M5, same transmission. You can't sell 4-doors in the Northeast unless you have all-wheel drive. No problem. Now there's a PTO from the front of the ZF 8-speed, and it'll drive the front wheels. You know what I mean? So that's supplier-led innovation. So that's why all of a sudden everything went all-wheel drive like 5 years ago, was because the transmission maker developed it.
Gotcha.
And so it's anyways, it's one of those. It's kind of a bit of like too inside baseball, I think, for most consumers. Like they don't care.
They don't care. Yeah, they don't care.
Puddle light, is coming from the same place, but it is the same company that's putting the the 3-pointed star on the ground and the Mustang horse. It's the same company
thing.
selling bulbs. Yeah.
One of the things that we were talking, going back to your earlier point, and we talk about this internally at Hemmings quite often, like, so in 25 years, right, when these new cars that we're dealing with now are, let's call them collectible for the sake of argument, right? Like, what are the things like the dash interface is going to look like when you have to go and restore these things? Is there going to be some weird aftermarket brand, right, that's got some kid who's going to be like, look, I'm going to restore these things, I'm going to give you a new module, and you can actually restore this blank oblong iPad in front of your face in your BMW, whatever. What's that going to look like? And interior parts and fabrics and things like that.
I think a lot of this goes back to what Musto was saying, though, about like the pre-2002 year.
Yeah,
cars are so bloody integrated now. Long story short, years ago I went to Alfalterbach, Germany, where AMG is headquartered, and I got on the line, and with this guy named Patrick, I assembled a 5.5 liter twin turbo V8 engine. And then, for God knows what reason, Mercedes shipped it to me. So I had this 700-pound crate sitting at motor. They actually sent us two, which is another crazy story. But the one I built, so it went to where'd it go? It wound up at Jonathan Ward at Icon. So I gave it to him, and we were going to try and do something. And then as we were digging into how this engine worked, it was like, if you don't have a signal from the gas flap telling the car's brain that the gas flap is shut, the engine won't turn on or it won't go into drive. Something crazy, you know. So there's no. I actually gave it to like Freiberger and Finnegan for about a minute, and they're like, "Can you cut off the direct injection?" I'm like, "No, it has to be direct injection." They're like, "Forget it, we want to carburet it." I'm like, "No, you can't carburet it," you know. And then I think it wound up with he does Eyesore Racing.
Okay.
He was back for a second.
Okay.
He went away.
Oh, did
we lose him?
Yeah, I think he's paused.
Here, you guys vamp.
Johnny, you there? You're going in and
Johnny, we're losing your signal.
Do we lose them all together?
Yeah, I'm going to take a screenshot of confused Johnny.
Okay, how's this? Sorry.
No problem. You hit a button.
Looks like you're back.
Yeah, sorry. What happened? I know my mistake. I was on one network. There's a better network. I should have been. Okay. So, anyways, the engine wound up. I think Dave Coleman, Eyesore Racing. He's a Mazda engineer, but he's he's the most successful Lemons racer of all time. He has the engine now. I don't think he can make it work. So, to your point, what are you going to do in 25 years when you got to replace the touchscreen? Like, God only knows. I have no idea. And look, at that point in time, with what's going to happen to gasoline in 25 years, I think we're going to, sadly, and we're already seeing this, I think, with like auction prices of cars, we're going to get to a point where you got to be really rich to collect cars. You know, like horses have become, you know, like it's really hard to keep a horse. They're so expensive. And I just fear it's going to get that way. And we're already seeing it, you know.
Yeah.
But I was up running around some supercars up in Angeles Forest the other day, and there's a little like 9 a.m. informal thing on Friday mornings. And there was these dudes that had like, you know, Porsche Speedsters, like 57 Porsche Speedsters, and they're you know, $400,000 now.
It's insane.
And it's a 60 horsepower car, you know, like
they're made of balsa wood. Yeah. I mean, it's like,
and they're great, but it's like 400,000. Like, geez, you know.
It makes no sense. Like, I look at the cars, like Dan and I both collect. I mean, you know, the Chargers and stuff like that, and you look at those, and listen, by themselves, they're pretty terrible, right? I mean, they're just, and no one is ever going to be like, they're great cars. They're not great cars. You own them and you drive them because of pure nostalgic purposes and because they make you giggle and they make you smell like gasoline and they're raw and stuff like that. But like, you know, they're not good per se. I mean, they make you feel a certain way, so that's where the goodness comes from, right? And they look a certain way, which is where the goodness comes from, right? And they sound a certain way. But you know, as far as a mechanical object, they're pretty terrible. I mean, they're just terrible. So, and I always look at, like, from when I bought those cars almost 20 years ago to what they're worth now. Oh, yeah. And I'm like, y'all understand it says Dodge on it, right? Like, this is not like some exotic piece of material. This was made by some dude in Detroit with a big hammer. And, you know, if it didn't fit, he kicked the corner panel and someone wants to pay X amount of dollars for this now. Yeah. And, you know, it does boggle the mind. But to your point, I totally agree with you where the value is, they're spiraling out of control. Right.
It is. I'll give you one. So I didn't buy Davy Johnson had a 6.9. I didn't buy that. Yeah. They didn't even know he had it because it was buried under so much garbage. He had a 914.
Yes.
And I'd never seen it, but Davey had told me he had this 914. So the family got in touch with me and they said, "Hey, could you help us like selling some of his cars and guitars and motorcycles and whatever?" And I said, "Sure, I'll help it up. Is there a Porsche 914 there?" And they're like, "No." Then yes, we found it. It's in really rough shape. Like we'll sell it to you for $500. And I sent them the money within 90 seconds. I'm like, done. Thinking, how bad could it be?
Little cash app,
They ripped me off. But like, I'm restoring this thing, and I don't know why I'm even restoring this thing, but I'm restoring this thing, and it's like to get 4 wheels. I've spent 7 times as much on the wheels as I spent on the car. And by the way, what did I buy? I bought the wheels that would have been on the car stock in 1972. That's
right.
And just to get them back to functioning. The paint is 15 times, not counting tax, what I paid for the car.
Oh yeah.
And so my little $500 Porsche is going to be, I don't want to say the
it's
number.
It's going to be 30 grand. It's going to be 30 grand.
Easily. At least.
Right.
And it's so funny. Like Magnus Walker told me, because he's Mr. Old Porsche. He's like, don't do it. He's like, just like look at it for an hour and get rid of it, sell it. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I gave a guy a 914. And let me tell you what's going to happen. You're going to it's going to cost $40,000 to get it where you want it. And then you're going to be on Angeles Crest. You're going to be in 5th gear and you're going to go, yeah, I want to go a little faster. And you're going to downshift to 4th and nothing's going to happen. You're not going to go any faster and you're going to hate it. Like, don't, so I'm sort of there already. And I've never even driven the thing. It's never even put up, not even a foot,
Right.
I sat in it twice. And now the interior's out. So yeah, I don't know. And it's like, I don't even really want to be restoring this car. And I'm spending way more, I could have probably just gone and bought a 996 Porsche GT3
without question.
I'll wind up, which is what I actually want.
Yeah.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy. So sadly, it's becoming a rich person's game. And I'm at the very, bottom definition of the word rich. And I got to make decisions I can't really afford that this month,
Right.
Oh yeah. So, welcome. Right.
Yeah. We're all in the same boat,
Yeah.
So when we talk about the new cars and we talk about things like Porsche, like 911s and Boxsters and Caymans and things like that, right? I mean, I always look at, and it sounds strange, but I always look at Porsche Boxsters because literally you could get into a Porsche Boxster right now for $5 grand.
$3 grand. Yeah.
$3 grand. Yeah. I mean, it's insane. Yeah. And they're really good. If you find one that's sorted and has the maintenance, for $3,000 to $5,000, oh my God, what a car, right?
I mean, look, one of the very best cars I've ever driven, I think, just to be a nerd, was the 987 Boxster S. So the 986 was the first Boxster with the funny headlights, and then they did the second gen of that was the 987. Came out with the 997 did. Those are $5,000, like you're saying, and it's one of the best driving cars there is. And it's a car where you don't really care about straight line speed. So that 200 and I don't know what it is, 27 horsepower, whatever it is plenty because the car weighs less than 3,000 pounds. And no, they're incredible. A friend of mine, she just picked up a Boxster. I think it was a base 987 for $3 grand. And it was so cheap because it had one black body panel.
That's fine.
But to a Porsche person, that's it's a white car with a black hood or something. And so she got it for $3,000. And I spent $3,500 on effing wheels for my 80 horsepower car, So no, you're totally right. That's the smart move. However, not a 911. So some people will look down their nose at you,
Yeah.
But it does handle better than many, 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 many other Porsches and other cars. Right. They're incredible. I fell in love with being an automotive journalist. That was one of the first cars I got to review because of that car. Well, they just give you stuff like this. This is incredible,
So let me ask you, when you first got into this business, because I don't know, I'm sure you don't remember, but we had met a million years ago. I had raced a Corvair in in Lemons. Remember when you used to judge Lemons and you used to be in Lemons?
Was this at Thunderhill?
No. And I think you were there, but I'm not sure. This was at Stafford Speedway in Connecticut.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah. Okay. I remember the car. Yeah.
So
Alex Roy showed up with chickens on his car.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah,
that's correct.
It was 106 degrees and 180% humidity. Yeah.
That's correct. So we won the Index of Effluency Award that day in the 63 Corvair, whatever the case is. And I just remembered it was you, it was Jay Lamb, you had the big cowboy hat on, and it was, and this is kind of an odd segue back into Lemons, but was this kind of how you got into this whole business, or how did you?
No, I told this story. Long story short, I turned 30. I used to have a tech job like you. I had a tech job and I turned 30, and I remember I was sitting in my little stupid office at work and I was so bored. I couldn't even think of a way to goof off. You know, I'd become the master of like goofing off at work, because why would you want to work on a web page or whatever when you can do anything else, right?
Right.
And I couldn't even think of a way. And I turned 30 and I'm like, you know, existential crisis. Like, if you don't get out of this chair now, you're going to turn 40 and you're still going to be sitting here, and you're just going to be that much more miserable and unfulfilled. And it was actually The Truth About Cars, back when it was, at the time, I believe it was just Robert Farrago. It was only him.
Okay.
He had no one else writing. I think he had no one else writing for him. And I sent him a note and I said, look, because I've always if I can put a little ego into this, I've always been what I consider a strong writer. And I was writing like movie reviews and music and stuff like that. I was reviewing stuff. And I said, listen, I'd love to give this a try. I really, and back then, before he kind of went off the deep end, he did very good car reviews. He really did. Just pure product reviews. Forget about all the like political theater stuff he was doing. He would review a car. He was good at it. And anyways, he said, yeah, he goes, go review a car. So my buddy had a Saab 92X. So it was the Subaru, right?
Sure.
So I reviewed that and I sent it to him, and it came back like full of red ink. Now, being, you know, an egomaniac, I didn't like that. And so I didn't look at it for a little while. And then a couple days or weeks went by, and I'm like, God, I'm even more bored than I was, you know. So I pulled it out and I looked at his changes, and they were all good and reasonable, you know. So I made the changes and I sent it back to him, and he said, yeah, this is pretty good. Yeah, I'll send you a press car. And then I started writing for him. But then I think the reason it was really a stroke of luck. Davey Johnson, I want to say the third or fourth thing I ever wrote, he cross-linked it on Jalopnik. So this would have been like 2005, that era. And I think at the time Jalopnik was like him and Spinelli, and that was kind of it. And I had met Davey, and he even said this on the article. You can look it up on your Wayback Machine. But I had met Davey at a strip club in LA years earlier called Jumbo's Clown Room. And
I don't know Jumbo's.
Yeah, Jumbo's. Yeah. So what had happened?
I mean, no,
we don't.
No.
Yeah, what had happened was my friend Deirdre, she goes, listen, this guy on Friendster reached out to me. this is how long ago this was.
On Friendster.
That's before MySpace. Yeah. So he wants to take me on a date to Jumbo's, and like, he seems cool, but that's kind of, I don't know, will you just come along to make sure he's not a serial killer,
psychopath? Yeah.
So I go, sure. So Davey brought a friend for her, or not for her, just he also brought a friend. Anyway, so Davey and I smoked at the time, so him and I were going outside to have cigarettes, and I talked to him for 4 hours straight, and we didn't stop talking, and we talked about cars and punk rock, and that was it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is the coolest guy I've ever met. So just by happening to meet him at a strip club, years later, he lists me on Jalopnik, and then I started communicating with Spinelli. And I had an idea for a story, and Spinelli was like, yeah, that sounds cool, write it up. And the rest is kind of history. And then I left, you know, lots of long stories. I left Jalopnik and Truth About Cars, and I was writing for Autoblog. And I just kind of became friends. There's Jumbo's. Okay. We smoked right by the door on the right. So the door on the left is the backstage. For the strippers, we would come out the door on the right. That's
I don't know. We know nothing about that.
So I interviewed Jay for something for Autoblog, and then or maybe it was in July, I don't know. Anyways, and so I got friendly with Jay, and it was one of those things where I was like, look, you didn't know me when you thought up Lemons, but I would have been sitting with you at that lunch, and we would have thought it up together, you know. And he's, probably. And our humor just kind of meshed, and so Phil and I sort of developed these, you know, cruel, corrupt judge personas, which fit great. But I do remember you, because you were this big tall guy that was hanging around with Alex. I remember that. But I remember really the first time I met you, where we talked, was at the Quail. We were standing on the edge of the lawn at the Quail. And you were telling me like, oh yeah, I used to do, you know, databases or something horrible. And I was like, oh God, me too. Yay, we got out.
I know. I feel like that's the biggest thing. And, you know, we always talk about how people get into this industry now. And I feel like, I don't know if it's easier now or harder to get into this industry. I feel like the people who try to do it now are more under a microscope than we were, just because, because of social media, and we really didn't have that when we started, right? So yeah, I think the new people, they can have their own voice per se, I think, but a lot of times that voice can hurt them if they don't curate it properly, right?
Yeah,
I think
look,
there's a lot of stuff.
I always tell people, like, thank God I was married when social media came out. It's like, wow. Yeah, I mean, I had a lot of, I got real lucky. I mean, like I'll give you, just for anyone out there who's thinking about getting into this. So Farrago was amazing because he had this demand, which seemed insane at the time, but like a review was 800 words, not less, not more, 800 words, which actually, if you're a writer, that's so hard to do.
That's hard to do.
Paul Krugman, who, he got I think the Nobel Prize for economics. I remember I was watching a lecture of his, and he was talking about that. He says, it's easy to write a 1,200 word story. It's really hard to write an 800 word story. So I don't know
That's right.
why Farrago did that, but that was great training, because he would just send stuff back like 802, cut 2 words,
Wow.
And then Spinelli was the other one who he did 2 really great things to me. One was a very small thing, but he's like, use contractions, because I'm a writer, so I would spell out, I cannot believe. He's like, no, you can't believe. Like use contractions. That's how you talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other one was, I did this thing called Fantasy Garage, the Jalopnik Fantasy Garage, where I'd write up a different car every week. And I don't know, one night I got drunk and didn't do it or something like that. I remember I got all caps. I woke up in the morning, I got all caps from Spinelli. And he's like, every week means every week. And this is a guy who had never so much as like not smiled or not made a joke. And he was
right.
so, like, all caps, text message from Spinelli was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And so I was really lucky. I had this training, and Jalopnik, I was allowed to fail back then. Jalopnik was pretty cool. And we were allowed to try things and make mistakes. And we really did use it as social media. Like we would post pictures of ourselves, which like no one did that. You never saw, I read, I don't know, Car and Driver for 30 years. I never saw Chubba Cheddar's face once,
Right.
But we would like go out and like take pictures of ourselves with car designers and stuff. And so it was just super experimental. And Spinelli, thank God, shielded us from the insanity of Gawker. Like, I can't really ever explain to people how insane Gawker was as a company. But like, when Hulk Hogan shut him down and destroyed the First Amendment in the process, half of me was like, good, like good. But, just, I always tell this story, but like, it was just when I was leaving, but we once in a while get these like all hands emails from Nick Denton.
Yeah.
And one of them was like, I looked at all the sites today. Everything is boring and terrible. You guys, I don't know what it's going to take. You need to get more creative. Go get drunk or do some drugs or whatever. And so the CEO telling his employees to go do drugs and get drunk. And we work for a car site. But Merely Martin replies back like, can we expense the drugs?
I mean, it's a fair question. It's a fair question.
So that was the end of Jalopnik. But it was really experimental. It was really cool, and it was a safe place for a couple of knuckleheads like me and Davey and Phil. It was Merely Martin and Bumbeck to just experiment and try stuff. You know? And
I think there's still Dan is the biggest proponent of this, right? Culturally relevant stuff that comes out that expresses personality. And I think, you're right. I think Dan is 100% right, because I think we went on this arc, at least it seems to me, right? Because I've been reading Jalopnik and you for a million years. And so I've seen the creativity arc go up, level, and then drop dramatically. And now it's starting to come back up, but it's not, I don't want to say it's creativity anymore. I want to say it's more of like a self-grandizing, egotistical thing that these writers are coming out with, like, hey, I'm me, so we should talk about just me, as opposed to actually crafting creative stuff that the viewer / listener / reader will really enjoy.
Yeah. The crazy thing again, like, and I'm a Motor Trend. We think in those terms, like how do we serve our audience and how do we serve our clients? But like again, just to go back to how crazy Jalopnik was, we never had that thought. We never had any thoughts. We never had a meeting. We never planned more than 1 minute ahead. You know,
Right.
it was just like a nerve impulse, you know. We were, the other thing was back then, and it did change, but we weren't cruel. And I think that was a big thing, was we weren't cruel.
Yeah.
We love to talk about other journalists, but like not in a mean way, you know, like and the other thing was we were just like, we'd go crazy because like Dan Neal would talk to us or something like that, you know, like we could, you know, like
this guy's legit. What's he talking to us for?
The sky god is reaching down and like legitimizing us, you know. And then that changed. I remember after I had left Jalopnik and the bad things happened, like they would start making fun of how Dan dressed or something stupid, and like just kind of missed the point.
I get that a lot, by the way. Oh, you're not. Oh, not me. Got it. Okay.
But like, no, what you're saying though, I mean, I think a lot of it is the rise of influencers, and I know I get accused of. I just had a phone call this morning with an OEM who was calling me an influencer, but if you look at like influencer content, what's funny about it is, 99% of it is their face and then a car in the background. Yeah. And, while I think it's okay, you know, and look, I host videos, and you host videos.
I do too. Yes.
There is some ego in that for sure.
Sure.
But I think, you know, you to maybe, I don't know, to succeed now as a newcomer, looks are important, or at least getting your face out there is important. Being shocking for the sake of being shocking maybe gets you noticed. I don't know. I mean, look, anytime anybody says to me, like, what should I study in college to get your job? I'm like, forget my job. Well, in pre-2020, I'm like, go into commercial real estate. All the creeps I know with the coolest car collections, they're all in commercial real estate. They all make $500 million a year, and they buy whatever the fuck they want, and no one says no to them. That's what you want. You know, you don't really actually want my job. You don't want to see what I go through. To be able to post like a Ferrari, you know, it's not just like, hi, can I have a Ferrari? It's like 10 years of, you know, being trustworthy and eating crow, and, you know, a whole bunch of nonsense. So,
well, you know, just wondering about that, because like I said, we have this kind of predominantly influential culture right now that's out there. Do you think that's going to really clip real journalism? Right. And will that overtake it? Because it's difficult now. And I hate to say this, but it's difficult to find a real compelling, really great story. And there are some amazing writers out there. There's no question. Like, you know, I think you, I think Kamisa, I think Alana, I think Lynn Woodward, Dan, you know, there are some amazing storytellers out there, but I feel like that's kind of leaving us, and we're getting inundated with these, you know, 250 word Instagram clips that tell an iota of a story without telling a story. And like, I still like to read. Like, I'll still pick up a book and go through stuff, and I'll still pick up a paper. Do you think it's hurting journalism?
Yes. I have this conversation with PR people a lot, and you know, it's one of those like, you know, dirty, ugly things is to do what I do. You have to be able to call somebody and say, hey, I need a McLaren 765 LT to drive around pointlessly for a week. You know, those are my needs. And there's a person on the other end who works for McLaren and their PR, public relations, but really they tell a story, right? That McLaren has a message to communicate about that car. This car does this, you know, like, so, you know, if I like go, well, I drove the McLaren, but I drove it in snow, and I tried to haul a suitcase and it was useless. It was a horrible car. That's not really the story they want out. So it's I don't want to say dirty, but it's another side of the businesses. You do need to speak with these people. However, if you're an influencer, right, what the hell do they need a PR person for? They'll say whatever the company wants them to say. Right. And I tell this to, and I'm singling out McLaren because a couple of years ago at the Geneva show, we did a big road trip. We drove from the UK down to Switzerland in a bunch of McLarens. Which was awesome. Me and Mike Harley actually hit 8 different countries. We kept leaving the group and just running all over the place. It was great. But at dinner time, they sat the influencers with the CEO, and we were stuck with whoever we were stuck with. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, I know you made this decision because this is a PR event. You're eliminating your own job because those influencers, they don't really care. They will just repeat whatever the CEO tells them to say, and the CEO is going to say, well, why am I paying, $1 million a year in salary to these people if I can just, cut out the middleman and just go right to people that'll say whatever I want, So I think it's going to hurt journalism. That said, car writing, it's not a very pure form of journalism, so to speak. There's not a lot of whodunit. There's not a lot of investigation. To me, journalism, what's the saying? You want to, I can't remember how it's said, but you want to as a journalist, you want to oppress the successful and like uplift the needy. There's a really elegant way to say that. I forget the expression, but
Robin Hood. Yeah.
I'm like, wow, this Ferrari is cool. It's not really hard hitting and it's not really that consequential. And if you can, I always say it's like a baseball box score, right? The Yankees beat the Red Sox 3-2. Make it interesting, because the car is what it is. But yeah, it's a weird, strange business, and I fear that we're going to get to this point where outlets will go away. There won't be a Hemmings, there won't be a Motor Trend, because all you really need is somebody just standing in front of a car and just says the new Ferrari costs $300,000. Cool.
Right.
That's and it makes this much power, and the manufacturer says it weighs this much, and the manufacturer says it goes this fast. That's one thing I take a lot of pride in, still working for Motor Trend. We're like one of the last outlets that actually weighs cars and tests cars, and we get great stories out of that, and most people don't. The manufacturer said this. It's like, and I'll pick on Ferrari a little bit. Like when we had the F12 a couple years ago, every article written about it said it weighed 3,500 pounds and it did the quarter mile in, I don't know, I'm making this up, 11.9 or whatever, 11 and a half, right? We got one and they said, don't weigh it, don't test it, don't take it to a track, So we, of course, weighed it and tested it. And oh my God, it weighed 4,004 pounds. It was 500 pounds more than they said. It did the quarter mile in 12.4 because it couldn't hook up because it was so heavy.
Right.
And so Ferrari hated us for a couple of years, but that's okay. They like us now. But it's that is gone. That's that, Motor Trend, like we're all kinds of headwinds and tailwinds, and it's not good for this industry, because it's expensive to test cars. You got to rent a facility. You got to pay people that know how to actually extract the best quarter mile time out of a car, which, by the way, isn't launch control necessarily.
Right.
So it's a crazy business, and I hope people appreciate what we do. But again, you look at some of these influencers, and we know who they are. And if you don't, I'll pick on Alex, Supercar Blondie, but good for her. Like, she's taken over the world. Good for her. But she stands in front of a car, nicest person, but she's not trying. She's not trying to tell you, anything new. She just stands in front of a car, and she's got more followers than Motor Trend, and more clout.
Yeah.
So
I know it's crazy. It really is. I mean, I think we think of a lot of the stuff that we did, coming up in this industry and whatnot, and the amount of time we've personally, all of us have spent behind the wheels of cars, right? And learning about cars and the technology. And then somebody comes along and they're just like, click. And you're like, fucking seriously?
Yeah. But, there's also, remember, that you have to resist the temptation to always dismiss the new people.
Sure.
I'll go back to Brett Burke for a second. So when he came out, and I mean came out, because he suddenly had a column called Stick Shift, and he's like, I'm gay and I love cars. And all my gay friends, and as you know, the car business is half gay, if not more.
Oh, sure.
It's weird. Like it's the gayest of all industries. It really is. But like all the old time gay journalists were like, that motherfucker. Like, we spent years trying to legitimize ourselves as real serious car people, and he comes out with a Mustang fucking another Mustang wearing rainbows. But Brett is probably my favorite writer working today. Him and Daniel are right there. So I don't want to be too dismissive. And again, Alex, Supercar Blondie, I've met her a bunch of times. First of all,
sweetheart.
Like,
yeah,
hustles her ass off. Like,
absolutely,
so hard, works nonstop. It's just doing it a different way. Like, and again, she took advantage of the infrastructure she had. Right, she had Instagram and YouTube. She nailed it. She figured it out. We didn't do such a good job. We had magazines, kind of got that. We did video. We sort of knew how to do that for a little while, but then it became like, as YouTube, this better than I do, as YouTube cut down the amount they'd pay you for millions of views,
sure,
suddenly you couldn't make a living doing it,
right.
But because we had huge overhead, because we had camera
productions
people.
And that's right. Yeah, it's expensive.
She has no overhead, so she outsmarted us. And good for her. But I'm just saying though, and I think what you were saying is like, I think I'm interested in how a car handles, but maybe we're lying to ourselves, and most consumers really don't care.
I hope not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I struggle with that too. And it's like, I had a conversation with my cousin yesterday because he's got to buy a car. And he said, listen, I just need a little, and those are like, I hate those words.
Yeah,
and I'm like, what do you mean you just need? No. You need, what you need is, right? And he's like, no, I just need something that's reliable, that gets me from point A to point B. And I'm like, yeah, but what about handling and braking? He's like, dude, I don't care. I just want something that gets 30 miles to the gallon, gets me here, and that'll last me 10 years. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I struggle. Look, I always say, all my friends ask me car advice, and no matter what I tell them, they get a Prius. So it's
right.
It's just, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, and then it's also funny, like, I spent a long time learning how to become what I consider a fairly decent driver.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, how do I put this? Like, just what your cousin was saying, like, no one really cares, like it's weird, and who am I talking to at that point? Am I trying to impress other car journalists? Like, am I, the fastest car journalist, which is, like, wow. And I'm not that either, so it's a weird thing, I don't know. I'm bumming myself out. I don't know what the story is.
Well, I think, it's hard because I think the industry is changing to that point. We're all kind of trying to figure out, I don't necessarily want to say what's next, but just kind of where is the industry as a whole going, right? When we start talking about things like semi-autonomous and stuff like that, just the technology that's coming into us, and guys that are a little bit on the old school side. Like, I know Dan and I are totally old school guys. But just kind of, I guess, where our place is now, like, how do we navigate this? And I think that's becoming harder and harder.
Look, that's the ultimate question. Like, what the hell do I need you for once a car drives itself, And it's a really tricky thing. And we talk about that at Motor Trend, like, well, how, what are the real performance metrics that are important for like a pure electric car? And, we sort of doubled down on acceleration, right? So, the Tesla, we got it to 60 in 2.28 seconds, right? That's really cool, but that doesn't really matter. And that's a very specific model. There's a range, but like, really, what's important? And then once cars start driving themselves, which I think is a little bit further away than some people.
Yeah, I think it's way down the line.
Yeah, but who knows? I think the electric cars, within 10 years, it'll be hard to buy a new gasoline car just because of cost. It'll just be that much cheaper to make an electric car. But it's so funny. I remember a few years ago, I was talking to a very senior Porsche person. This is a guy who worked on the 918 Spider. He's an electrician for Porsche. Mm-hmm. And he's like, Porsches won't have steering wheels in 10 years. And I was like, And then I talked to a guy from BMW, similar level engineer, and he's like, yeah, we have 1,000 people and we're spending $4 billion a year on autonomy, and I don't think it'll ever happen. Maybe 50 years. So I don't know. I think it's a little longer. But again, for the kids coming up now, there probably will be some type of maybe freeway only autonomous driving. Mm-hmm. How do they review that?
Yeah.
And then And then the things
that's
we
a great.
both love, even though I kind of tend to like, maybe not the same exact types of cars you do. I think we both like big, gnarly, huge horsepower.
Oh yeah,
things.
stupidness. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, once the cars are driving themselves, why would I buy the AMG version? Since is it gonna be programmed to drive itself like an AMG? Like shoot the gap,
Right.
right. Speed limit 70, go 90, or is it gonna just go the way that like the Honda Civic is programmed to drive itself? Well, why the hell wouldn't I just buy a Civic if it's just gonna drive itself?
It's a great point.
So, everything's changed. That's why I was talking to a friend of mine who's a cop, and I'm like, what are you going to do? Weed's legal. And soon cars are going to drive themselves. Like, what is the CHP going to do? Like, how are you going to do both? You won't matter at all. No more drunk driving, no more weed. So I don't know. World's changing.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So now I want to go, this is something that and I'm going to throw this out. This is, obviously on your Instagram page. You have a big problem with people that can't park their cars. So for those that don't know, Johnny got so mad at these people that he has this thing called Parking is Hard with t-shirts and everything else. And it cracks me up because randomly on his Instagram feed, you'll just see some random idiot that parks completely sideways. So how did that?
I'll get it. Okay. So I don't think I hate bad parkers more than anybody else. But when Camise and I were working together, we would not even parking. We would see a lot of, I don't know, whenever anything went wrong, like let's say the sound guy would make a mistake. Our little thing that him and I would say while we're sitting in the car with each other is like, sound is hard, or driving is hard, or lunch is hard. Whenever it was like an idiot mistake,
right.
It was like, oh, this is hard. And I just started tagging, and a couple of them when I first started this. It was just like there were such egregious parking offenses that, and again, it was at the time I would just say parking is hard, and somehow just like memes catch on. It just caught on where I would get mailed all these photos. People would just like send me photos of, and as people park miserably. Apparently, most often in Scottsdale, Arizona. But
that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, Scottsdale's really the gross offenders with Scott. Anyways, and it just kind of became a life of its own. And then Blipshift reached out to me and said, "Hey, we'd like to do a T-shirt with you." And I'm like, I don't really got anything. All my intellectual property is kind of owned, by Motor Trend. I got nothing. I'm like, well, this parking is hard thing, let's try it. And we sold some shirts, and it got pretty successful. Oh, wait. Ryan, real quick. The COVID beard. Open that up.
Let's see.
So that was.
Oh yeah! Wow.
That was COVID beard.
Yep, that's
the
great.
First time when I went down to a mustache.
Yep.
That was my homeless fisherman look there.
Mm-hmm. So. I like the mustache. I think you're one of the few people that can still rock a mustache.
I really like the mustache. I always think I look best with a mustache, but it's one of those things like, Angus McKenzie, he always said like, never lose the beard, because, he's like, why do you think I have long hair? Because when I go to meet with, a CEO of a car company, they don't remember anybody except that one guy did have long hair. So you're going to be the one guy with a beard. Yeah. And then, everyone started growing a beard, so maybe the mustache is the way to go.
Well, dude, I get that now because my beard has stripes in it, so everybody now is just like, oh, it's the guy with the striped beard, and that's it. And I'm like, well, that's staying now. I can't get rid of this. So it's like, Stoner's got the hair, but he's like the guy with the good hair. I'm like,
yeah.
I got to tell you another thing though. So my beard, at this length, it looks pretty one color, but as it gets longer, it gets grayer. So if I trim it, I get less gray. Yeah, I got like 2 gray hairs. They're coming in.
Yeah, no, I got,
who are you talking to, man? Yeah,
I know. Me and Stoner are just like old man in the sea over here.
Yeah, right.
You were accusing me of dyeing my hair, which I think I'm sure Camisa told you that.
Someone told me that. Let's just say that.
Yeah. I don't. Look, I got some gray.
Dude, God bless. I wish I don't.
Yeah, Camisa dyes his hair for everyone watching, just so you know.
Dude, I wish I didn't have as much gray, but my whole thing is, fuck it. Like, just
Just gotta
embrace it.
embrace it.
It is what it is.
I would never have the grooming ability to like keep it up for more than like one day.
Oh,
you know?
no, I would be all Giuliani with stuff running down my face.
No, yeah, I couldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Standing in front of a landscaping place with a microphone.
Couldn't do it. I'll get there. But yeah.
Yeah. But dude, this has been a lot of fun. Thank
This
you
is
so
good.
much.
Yeah, it's great, Johnny.
Dude, thank you for so much coming on the barbecue, man. It's
Oh.
been way too long, and we gotta.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a feeling this will be the first of many discussions that we will all have on this.
I love doing podcasts. Sorry if I got kind of gloomy. I haven't eaten, and I'm just.
Nah,
Hey,
dude,
hey.
it's
Welcome to 2020. That's how we roll around here, man.
I know.
so let's do this. So what's happening for 2021? Give us things that are on the horizon for Mr. Lieberman in 2021.
I got nothing. Okay. Oh, the one thing I got.
I got nothing.
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 And that's it. We're done.
Two things.
And out.
Three things. Hopefully, the 914 will be finished soon.
Okay.
It was a 1970, and I told the guy, I said, I really want to drive it in 2020. Then last time I saw him, he's like, yeah, it's not going to happen.
Okay.
But that's okay. So hopefully that's done. I'm getting I'm going to buy an Alfa Romeo Giulia. Yeah. So not a quadrifoglio. It's
Okay.
for the wife. It's just a regular Giulia, but
Great car.
280 horsepower.
Amazing driving car.
They are the best. Yeah. And I'm a sort of a believer in put your money where your mouth is. And for years I've been running around telling everyone that the best driving four-door is the Giulia. And I got a 3-year-old four-door, makes sense. It's not a wagon. I wish it was a wagon, but anyway, so I ordered one a long time ago. It was being built in Italy, COVID, it's a boat. So apparently it's in Baltimore right now. So mid-January, it's going to get to LA. So I'll have a Giulia. And then the only thing I know for certain is in the first week of January, I should have a McLaren 765 LT to play around in, which I'm excited about. And then halfway through January, the McLaren Elva, I'm going to get to actually spend a day with that. So that's the McLaren with no windshield. 804 horsepower, and there's no glass. And so
helmet, goggles, like how does that work?
Full face. I actually, after we hang up, I'm going to buy a new full face because I hate my old one, but and I'm going to try and expense it. It's from 40 to 70 miles an hour. It has it has an air, what do they call it? Air shield. And so it sucks air in and it blows air up in front of you. And it's supposed to keep like bugs from like, I don't know, it's air curtain or something. But over 70, it doesn't matter. You're just in it. So I think you have to wear a full face.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, the car's designed to cruise down PCH at 45 miles an hour. I'm like, but it's got 804 horsepower and weighs less than 3,000 pounds. And they go, well, then you put on the helmet. But
because I mean, you don't want anybody to know it's actually you driving that car with 840.
It depends on your priorities. I mean, like it's if you want people to see you, it's got to be $1 million car, $1.5 million. I don't know. They're only building 149 of them for sale. So super rare. Probably a third of that comes to the U.S. So it's going to be, you'll never see one type thing. So I don't know, I'm excited. I like driving rare cars. I'm excited.
Well, hell, man, enjoy it because that sounds like fun.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to those.
To buy another helmet. My wife, she loves that. So
of course, yeah. Well, dude, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, Johnny, thanks.
Yeah, we will absolutely do this again in the new year, which is going to be great. Cool. So yeah, man, and listen, we wish you the best for the new year in 2021, and we will be talking to you very soon. Thanks for listening, folks. And again, please subscribe to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast. If you're on Spotify, check us out there. Subscribe to it on iTunes. And if you are going to go to YouTube, make sure you go to the Hot Rod BBQ podcast and hit that subscribe button, and we'll come to you every week.